Audio testing, 1, 2, 3. Lights on, camera rolling, and action.
Welcome to the Scaling Creator Podcast, the one-stop shop that explores problems, solutions, and stories for business-minded creators. I'm Soren Dickens.
And I'm Eriksen Dickens.
We'll be talking about everything from self-discovery, storytelling, leadership, marketing, sales, operations, and finance.
If you like a healthy dose of education mixed with a generous dash of insightful entertainment, prepare for your ears to be pleasured. Oh yeah.
Make sure to check us out at scalingcreator.com and also join our free Discord community.
Scaling Creator launching in 3, 2, 1.
The following content is not intended for all listeners, but we strongly encourage all listeners to listen regardless. All right, welcome back to the Scaling Creator Podcast. I'm Soren Dickens. I'm here with Eriksen Dickens. We're here in the production van. And today, Aaron Jones is our guest. So today we're going to be talking about the evolution of the character Oakdale Bud. Oakdale Bud is a character that Eriksen has played out. The character of Oakdale Bud really incorporates traits of characters from small rural towns and states. Over the past couple years, we've been skills to portray this character. We're going to be talking about the themes of storytelling, character development, target audience, self-reflection, and the collective Oakdale, and the Central Valley in general. So Eriksen, take it from here.
Take it from here. Wow, it's a nice introduction there. Well, thank you very much. And Aaron, I'm glad you got to join us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, fellow video creator over here, fellow creative, fellow storyteller. So we felt it'd only be necessary if you were here. And honestly, you've been around for almost the whole Oakdale Bud journey. You know,
almost since the birth of Bud.
Right, I know. I think I met you 2.5 years ago for the first time at the rodeo when I was like fully in character shooting Oakdale Bud with Soren. Right. You remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was fighting PETA out in the parking lot. And
was that the first time that you and Aaron met?
Yeah, you met him beforehand, but that's when I met Aaron, and I had the whole Bud hat. I was probably
oh my goodness,
quite intoxicated.
What was your first reaction meeting someone who was out in the street?
Well, I had already saw his videos before. Thought it was genius. And I knew immediately. I didn't know the draw it had, especially here locally. And it was apparent when I saw him in person that it was...
Well, thanks, bud. Well, at that point, it was definitely getting hype or whatever. It was going around. But that was like 2 years ago. So that video, honestly, that we shot at the rodeo, I feel like was the one that... It was definitely the most robust. It was the most complex video we put out there. And... yeah, that was a wild time, man. But yeah, no, I was so honored to meet you, and it's so cool that since then, you know, we've become such good friends, and we've done a lot of projects together outside of Oakdale Bud, and then a lot of the Bud shoots we've done as well, whether we're filming, riffing, or we're going to H-Bar or the rodeo. You know, you've been there for a lot of it, so it's just fitting great that you're here. Yeah, but
we go live the life a little bit too.
Yes.
We all embody the Bud character out in Oakdale.
And you're born and raised in Modesto.
Central Valley.
Central Valley, baby. Shout out Central Valley.
Anyone from the Central Valley can relate to Bud in some way.
I agree. And exactly. We'll get into this a little bit, but it started off as a more Oakdale centered thing, obviously, but then we tried to broaden it, universalize it a little bit, to reach more of the Central Valley in general. And then also not just that, but smaller rural communities in America in general, right? Mm-hmm. Because they're not that different if you look at it in the grand scheme of things, right? Let's face it, most of America honestly is made up of smaller areas. I think the average town population actually is way less than Oakdale. I think it's around like 8,000 to 10,000 people.
In small towns across the country.
Yeah, people don't really realize that, but that actually is, I think, roughly the average population. So that's something that we kind of tried to do as we evolved this character. But, going back to it as storytellers, what we do as a company professionally, Platinum Peak, storytelling and developing characters is so important, right? Whether it's shooting an advertisement or it's a branding video, whatever it is, if you can't craft a good character that resonates with a target audience, then the project will fall flat, right? That's something that we've learned over the years, super, super crucial. And I think that we incorporated a lot of the elements that we've learned throughout the years on the business side of things into this more fun, creative, artistic expression of developing a character. And it's been kind of cool to see that evolve. But yeah, man, Oakdale Bud, the character itself. First and foremost, we had to dive in and think a little bit about what makes a good character. What, in your guys' opinion, what makes a good character? Whether it's a movie or a book. I think that's super important.
I think as a consumer, when I watch content and I see a character, the one thing that I remember the most is how it makes you feel. And it's, I would say, somewhat subconscious. You don't really think about why they're necessarily making you feel a certain way, but you start to feel a certain way with a certain character.
Right. They make you react in a certain way.
They give you something. I think that that's been my experience when I see a character that I really relate to, is I feel something before I understand even what I felt. And you kind of look back on it, and when you see that, you're seeing the experiences that they live, you're seeing the problems that they face, you're seeing if their interpretation of life in general is aligned with the way you see things.
Right.
And then you start to fall into that, what is it? You start to fall into fan phase.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah. And I feel like an actor, they don't even have to be polished to be good. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Sometimes like a character in real life will draw you in, and you just know that that is a character.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you find those characters, and I think that Oakdale Bud, even when Oakdale Bud is in person, and going back to where we were kind of going, Oakdale Bud is a character that you'll see in person. Like, you'll not only see Eriksen playing Oakdale Bud and go like, that's a Bud right there. You'll actually meet people who are fully embodying it, which goes to show that we're kind of exploring similar characters that are developed in the rural small towns within the United States. Obviously, Bud takes it to a whole nother level.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to really like be a part of that.
Yeah.
What would you say, Eriksen? What makes a good actor?
Good actor, I would say self-reflection and being able to know yourself, and then your strengths, your weaknesses, and then also being self-aware enough to know what inspires you and what you can take from. Being able to look at your own experiences, being able to look at your life and the people that you've encountered, and how you can draw from that when you're trying to develop a character. You know, actors do an insane amount of pre-production work, right, when they're prepping for a character. And that was one thing that I wanted to do. I needed to understand how I can relate to my audience more as the character started to evolve and got off the ground. I was like, okay, well, I need to actually do some deep reflection here. You know, where can I draw inspiration from? What have I learned growing up in Oakdale throughout the years? I focused a lot on that in the beginning when I was trying to develop the character. And, you know, I drew from a lot of sources, you know, man.
Where did you pull inspo from? Where were you looking?
Oh, man. Well,
Is there anyone in particular?
Or were there any characters growing up that you saw that you started to almost see like a pattern?
Sure.
And you saw like consistency with certain things in terms of like characters you may have met?
look, in the Central Valley in general, it's a lot different than most parts in California, right? Relatively speaking. The Central Valley it's more rural. It leans more red, more blue collar. People in the Central Valley will do things that people, for example, in the Bay Area will not do.
Yeah.
You know, or LA or Orange County, right? They're out getting their hands dirty more often than not. They like to fish. They like to hunt. They're farmers. It's ag driven. They probably prioritize sports more. You know, they're hitting up the small town bars because there's not a whole lot else to do. It's kind of that all together. It's a little bit us against them mentality in the Central Valley. And so Oakdale, I would say, cowboy capital of the world, baby. I would say in general, that takes that even to a further level. You know, it embodies that to an extreme extent. And growing up, obviously, I got to experience that. You know, I'm a fourth generation citizen here. My family's all from here, and that's what's special about Oakdale is families continue to live here and raise their families here, and that cycle repeats. And so there's a lot of generational traits that repeat itself. And I was an athlete growing up in this rural community, come from a family of farmers. And so I got to meet a lot of people with similar traits throughout the years. My family, the coaches that I grew up with, coaches that coached me in high school, and obviously the people, my friends, my peers, people I'd meet. And there was just certain characteristics, certain traits that just kind of embodied that small town vibe that you don't see elsewhere. You know what I mean? Like, we're in the Letterman 5 years out of high school and show them back up to the football games, or bragging about their night out Friday night and how many beers they killed.
Or back when they were in high school.
Back when they were in high school. When I was in high school. Hey, back when I was in high school, showing off their section title championship rings. You know what I'm saying?
It's a bit of an exaggeration in most, I would say, in most small towns, but small towns that had like certain traits, right? Like
100%.
like really good
Yeah.
sports culture,
Right,
or
right.
really good, like really attractive girls, for example.
Yeah.
Like people talk about,
Friday Night Lights culture. Like obviously 90% of the Oakdale Bud stuff, it's an exaggeration, right? I take bits and pieces of stereotypes relative to Oakdale and I exaggerate it for comedic purposes. It's a parody done out of good humor. And that was one thing that actually prevented me from releasing the original Oakdale Bud video that we did 4 years ago. Do you remember that?
Yeah. What was the hang up on that?
Rewind it a little bit. We did like this Cal Poly bro fraternity spoof, right? Down in San Luis Obispo.
Right.
And, I was riffing, basically mocking the frat boys down there because they're a bunch of I'm sorry for that, but they are for the most part. So we did this, comedic kind of riff. I was riffing one-liners. It was funny, and I released it, and I got a really good response from it. And I got a bunch of people from Oakdale saying, do one on Oakdale. Do Oakdale next. That'd be hilarious. Do it on Oakdale.
I remember that, yeah.
You remember that? And I was hesitant at first because, I love Oakdale. I didn't want people to think that, I was mocking them out of ill will, and this was like, I was dissing Oakdale. So I didn't want to do it at first. And then finally, a couple months later, I was like, you know what? Let's just do it. Why not? It'll be funny. Let's just go out. So Soren and I grabbed the camera on our property here in Oakdale, and I just riffed for like an hour.
I remember that.
One-liners, just...
We were grabbing props, like, let's just use this, or, let's try that. It
24 pack of Coors Light.
Yeah.
AR-15. Handgun. I don't know, whatever. Yeah, we just kind of went out and we're like, let's just see what we can come up with, have some fun with it. And we did it, and then I edited it. And I was like, shoot.
I think you sat on it for a while. I don't remember.
Oh, man.
Feels like so long ago, but...
Yeah. It was like 6 months probably.
Really?
And I edited it. It was fully done, but I was too scared to release it because I didn't want to offend people. I didn't want people to be like, this guy, he's attacking our town. I didn't know how people would react.
It's your hometown, too.
Exactly, bro. So I was nervous. And then one day I just finally dropped it. And... it just...
The rest is history.
The rest is history. Oakdale Bud was created that day. No. The monster was officially created.
You have created a monster.
Hey, not much has changed, though. He's still wearing the same exact outfit as he was.
No, the first one we did, I was wearing like a Carhartt. He wasn't full caricature at that point.
That's true.
He evolved. The character evolved. Yeah. He was wearing a car because I didn't want to take it over the top.
Sure.
Right? Then it went over the top later. But at first, I was like, okay, I'm going to be a little bit more moderate here. Just a Carhartt, just one section title championship ring.
That's right. So we started to, the prop thing, we started to like find
just took it to another
memorabilia or find things to add to his character, right? So what did we add to his character?
Oh God, what didn't we add?
All the rings, right?
The second one, I wore all the rings, and then I added the red and gold outfit. It wasn't the Letterman jacket yet. It was just like a red flannel with a yellow shirt.
Oh, that's when you were on the hill with a gun.
Yes.
Saying this is the last
That was part 2.
Okay.
Because the first one, it went viral in the community, and I was shocked by that. I was like, okay, wow, I'm not getting any heat from this, from anybody. People love it. Diehard Oakdale, people love this stuff. And people were like, do another one. And I was like, oh, all right, you guys want round 2? Okay, I'm going to bump it up a little bit. I'm going to take it to the next level. And that's what you kind of have to do as a character, right? You have to just keep kind of pushing the boundaries and challenging yourself. And so the next one was a lot more intricate. It was a lot more complex. We went to more locations, put in a lot more time and effort into the jokes, the one-liners, the delivery of it, thinking about more experiences and reflecting, because I wanted the target audience, the people of Oakdale, to tap into themselves a little bit, right? Tap into their own consciousness. What can they relate to? What can't they relate to? How do the cultural aspects appeal to them? I don't know, Aaron, from an outsider's perspective at that time, what were some of the things that you related to just based off your time growing up here? Not necessarily in Oakdale, but Modesto, the Central Valley, the same vibe. What were some things that when you watched it, you were like, okay, I get it.
Oakdale Bud.
Yeah. I mean, you heard that forever.
I would say pretty much everything. Even if you're not from the Central Valley, like you're saying, this is small town America, Friday Night Light, sort of culture, and I feel like it resonates with people, even just from high school. It's the guy who doesn't want to grow up from high school,
Sure,
and it's just relatable in so many senses, from the guy who was the football jock to the guy who just parties all the time. And it was great.
Yeah, no, you got it. And that's exactly what I was trying to do at that time. I tried to make a character that embodied all the different cultural aspects of exactly what you just said, right? Just kind of take bits and pieces of everything and make this character, Oakdale Bud, who is just the personification of all of it.
Was he like the multi-tool of
Hell yeah,
just
Oakdale Bud
like
can do
abilities
everything.
and
Yeah, everything.
characters and really just like all the different pieces that I don't think we've even seen the full extent of him. I think he still has a lot to
He's
show
still going,
us.
man.
He's evolving.
Oakdale Bud is not dead. He might have slowed down a little bit, but he is still here. He is present, and he's got actually a lot of stuff coming here. But
I've got YouTube pulled up right now.
Yeah,
And I'm looking through the evolution based off of
Yeah.
like the releases. We did Oakdale Bud, the original, and then we did Oakdale Bud 2, right?
and then 3.
And then we did part 3.
And those were all like more just me riffing, right? The character was still being developed. The story side of stuff didn't really come until the next stuff. That's when I really started to dive into, okay, let's actually turn this guy into a character more so.
From there I think we did one where Oakdale Bud went to Hollywood.
Oh, yeah.
I totally forgot about that. Let me pull that up real quick because
forgot about
dude, and then we actually made another video called "The Making of Oakdale Bud," where you kind of dive into talking about
I scratched the
original-
surface on it, yeah. So that's when it really started to get a little bit more.
Oh, you went Oakdale Bud after Ghost Adventures. You were on that TV show down in Paso
Paso.
Robles, and you then made another reaction video to that.
That was actually one of my favorite ones that we did.
I mean,
Yeah. No, so I was in Eriksen, not Bud, was actually in that one show, Ghost Adventures, in Paso Robles, and I figured, you know what, let's turn it into an Oakdale Bud thing, right? So we shot some content of, Oakdale Bud got recruited by Ghost Adventures because they needed a drunk cowboy to play a role in one of their episodes, and so they recruited the Oakdale Bud because they saw his videos, and so they shipped him down there to Paso, and the small town boy in a big world now, acting. He's going to show up with 6 guns on set and a Bowie knife, and so we definitely turned that into something funny and humorous, and that's kind of when it developed into something a little bit more than just catchy one-liners. We actually kind of tried to develop Bud as somebody who faced adversity. And, probably, people who watch my stuff, I'd say that maybe only 30% of them have actually seen the whole linear progression of Oakdale Bud. So the ones listening, like, they actually kind of get it. A lot of people will just kind of tune in occasionally. They like the stuff, but they're not like actually watching the full length of each one. But that's something that I really try to do in these videos. And I don't know about you guys, but flaws and adversity in characters. What do you guys think about that in terms of relatability to somebody?
when you see a character, whether it be in a movie, some other content, or in real life, where you share similar adversity, you start to connect with them a lot quicker. I think that a lot of the people that you meet, the characters in life that you meet, you end up connecting with them over something similar when it comes to adversity. What about you, Aaron?
Bud has gone through a lot of adversity.
He has, man. He's been beat up a little bit throughout life.
But look how many friends he's made along the way.
Right? Everyone loves him. He's a homecoming king 2 years, and I mean, the section title, state championship winner. And he's pretty much done it all. Mechanical bull riding champion.
Many injuries.
A lot of concussions.
That he's overcome too.
He's overcome a lot,
Part
dude.
of his journey.
Poor Oakdale Bud, man. Oh, yeah. And I remember Soren, you and me were brainstorming, looking for comedic ways to incorporate adversity for Bud. I think the first one we did was Oakdale Bud defends the rodeo against PETA. And we made up, it all started with part 3 of Oakdale Bud when I was riffing and I said, I went to prison because me and my buds shot some PETA protesters with paintballs.
Yep.
It was great, but I spent 6 months in prison for it, And so we looked at that line and we were like, let's go down a storyline for this.
Yeah.
And so we came up with the idea to craft a storyline around the fact that Oakdale Bud could not get into the upcoming rodeo this year because of the fact that he shot PETA protesters with paintballs and they banned him. Yeah. And so we did a whole mockumentary at the Oakdale Rodeo where Oakdale Bud couldn't get in, but he took it upon himself to defend the rodeo from PETA. And that's the rodeo we met you, Aaron.
Right.
Soren and I were out there in the 108-degree heat for 3 hours, filming this thing of Oakdale Bud actually standing down PETA protesters. Obviously it was done out of it was humorous, right? Like I would look like a fool. I had, the signs,
Yeah.
I love House of Beef. And,
I just can't believe we did that to
oh,
this
I
day.
can't either, man.
That was just...
A whole bottle of Jack helped, but hey, no, yeah, we made a whole full-length like mockumentary out of it. Oakdale Bud was heartbroken, and we try to dive into a little bit of that. The fact that the rodeo is a very important thing for a lot of people here in Oakdale. It's a very sacred holiday, right? And so this affected Oakdale Bud, who is the embodiment of everything Oakdale, on a very deep level. It hurt him.
And I would just say, from a character standpoint, because he always conquers the adversity,
Naturally.
which makes Bud the hero.
He is the hero, absolutely. There's no challenge that will stand in Oakdale Bud's way. Oakdale. That's Oakdale.
What are some of the storylines that Oakdale Bud falls in line with as a character?
The hero's journey, naturally.
Of course.
Because he's the hero and there's adversity.
Man in the hole.
Yeah, because he's always finds himself in some type of hole that he has to get out of.
So when you were developing the character of Oakdale Bud, what storytelling mechanisms or what narrative frameworks were you aligning Bud with? There are all of these different narrative frameworks that work to connect, whether it be different stories or connect to a different target audience. What are these narrative frameworks that Bud decided to sign a contract with?
That's a great question. As professional storytellers, we've had to accustom ourselves with the different frameworks of storytelling, and a lot of these have been around for centuries, right? So actually I have the cards right here. I brought them out here for this, but these are like these storytelling cheat code cards that we have that have helped us.
What are they called?
Pip decks.
Pip decks.
Yeah, and we use these for developing storylines and concepts for the videos that we do professionally, but we figured, let's use some of this for the Oakdale Bud stuff. For example, one of these here is called the Voyage and Return story structure. So you put adventure out there and it ties of home and the heart of your story. So the Voyage and Return. I remember I incorporated this with one of the videos we did where Oakdale Bud, he had to go to rehab because, Oakdale Bud is quite the drinker of Coors Light only, or as he calls it, Bud juice, because everyone in Oakdale drinks Coors Light, right? For this video, Oakdale Bud went to the Love Oakdale event, the annual Love Oakdale event. He didn't get an award. He was very sad. And so he drank himself into a very dark place. And I wanted to do something with this episode that was a little bit more heartfelt and a little bit outside the box, right? So Oakdale Bud goes to rehab. That was the voyage, right? Going to rehab was the voyage. Then he comes back. He's sober. He's only drinking milk, only 2% milk. He swapped his Bud juice for milk. And then I ended up singing like a song, right? A sad ballad. I put a lot of time and effort into that song. I'm not a singer, it wasn't great by any means, but the production value and of both the song, I went to a professional like studio guy who helped me out with it, and it was at least presentable, right? And the lyrics, I put a lot of time into it, got some professional help. So this video was different, but that story, for example, that video encompasses the Voyage and Return. Another example would be Man in a Hole. So Oakdale Bud, he's always finding himself in a hole, right? So for this one, I remember we used this in like the rodeo one. Oakdale Bud was not allowed in the rodeo. He was in a very sad place. He wanted to defend the town and get back into town's good graces. He was in a hole. And so to get out of that hole, Oakdale Bud had to go from point A to point B. And the best way to do that was to defend the rodeo from PETA, those terrorists. And so that's, when we made that mockumentary about that, that was a representation of the story structure Man in a Hole. The Dragon in the City. Okay, this one, I remember this one really well, actually. So this is where there's a dragon outside the city walls. The world is no longer safe. What should you do? So for this one, being Oakdale's self-appointed silent protector / town mascot, as Oakdale Bud is, he had to defend his city from the dragon for this video. And for this video, the dragon was the Sonora Hog. And I don't know if many people have seen that video, but that was when I got into a little turf war with a guy who was doing what I was doing, but in Sonora. And so me and him had this beef, and we were going back and forth, kind of like a rap battle beef thing that you normally see, on social media. Shout out Eric Long. That's my boy, actually. It's my friend, and we kind of schemed the whole thing up. But that was a representation of the Dragon in the City.
Eric's actually on the podcast.
Yeah, he had a great episode.
Yeah, that was a really good episode. We're going to have him back on here soon.
Yeah. No, Eric's a great guy. He's the cousin of one of my close friends, Andy Morris.
Super talented photographer. His work is amazing.
Very.
Does a lot of nature, outdoor, landscape photography.
Mm-hmm. But he is from Sonora, so also screw him.
Can we trust him?
No, I don't know. No.
Hill people.
Hill people.
Okay, this is order and chaos, right? This is a concept that I really embraced when we did the video, Oakdale Bud runs for mayor.
Ooh.
Remember that one? Aaron, you were there for that, right?
That was a great one.
Yeah.
Was that the one where you were fielding questions from reporters?
No,
which-
so... Oh, that was the press conference one. That was the lead up to the actual advertisement we did where Oakdale Bud's running for mayor and he's laying out all of his policies.
Right.
And I got a call from the actual mayor, Cher Barrios, after that, who was telling me that she got calls from concerned citizens of Oakdale worried about me and the policies that I was trying to...
Shout out Cher.
Shout out Cher. I love
Shout out
Cher.
Cher.
Great mayor. I love her. Great person. But it was super funny. We did that video and Cher called me like the next day because it blew up in the city. I guess she was getting calls from people telling her like, okay, how are we going to beat her? How are we going to beat this guy? Who is he? How is he going to bring the Hershey factory back? How is he going to go to Mexico and bring it back? You know, it was all just done out of
Oakdale
humor.
Bud's a threat.
He's a threat. That's what she told me.
Would you say that because of the way that the video was put together and the character that you played through the video, that it was so believable? Because I remember trying really hard to make it look like one of those super cheesy political campaign ads.
The production value was
insane.
It was insane.
Yeah.
I mean, all three of us were in on it.
Yeah.
It was
And that's what elevates these videos is the production value on
Right.
your end and your end when you help as well, because it makes it look super cinematic and real. You see those cheesy ads, you know, my name is so-and-so and I approve this message, you know, they're cheesy.
Yeah.
And that's what we wanted to embody.
that particular episode, if you can call that, was better than most political ads out there.
I agree.
It really was.
I think that this is...
And that's, I think, why a lot of people took it serious.
Yeah. But it's so
I'm with
funny to
you.
me that people took it seriously when some of my policies I was dishing out during that video was like, I'm going to lower the chewing tobacco legal consumption age to age 10.
Bud's Booster Beer.
Bud's Booster Beer. Oh, that was the governor, but yeah, that was another
That's right,
wild
that's right,
one.
Oh
that's
my
right.
goodness. So
That's right.
this character went from running for mayor
Yes.
to then pulling out of the mayoral race because the mayor... Why did you pull out of the...
So that was another avenue we went down. After Oakdale Bud runs for mayor, you know, I did the whole order and chaos storyline, which is showing how my project can impose order on a chaotic mess. I tried to make it seem like Oakdale was in disarray and Oakdale Bud was the one that was going to save it. And after that, we were like, okay, you know, obviously this kicked off a little bit because people were taking it seriously. And so we're like, let's take it to a next level. And so we decided to do Oakdale Bud runs for governor. And we had to create a storyline about that, obviously. Why is Oakdale Bud abandoning the mayor race and now he's going to run for governor? And the storyline we went down was the fact that Oakdale Bud ended up taking a bribe from the leaders of the town, the quarterback club.
When you decided to use that as part of your story, were you hinting at any like underlying messages with taking a bribe in your political endeavors?
Sure. I mean, most politicians are into that, you know? It's like they're always... Let's be real here. I mean, not everyone, obviously. There are good ones out there who care a lot about their state, their city, whatever it is. But yeah, that was kind of taking a hit at politicians and how, you know, they're putting their interests first in a lot of ways. But this was done out of, you know, comedic purposes. I said that the quarterback club, who are the leaders in Oakdale, the real leaders, and that's you know, that's like a, you know, funny thing to say just because Oakdale is very sports oriented and the boosters and all that. And, you know, they bribed me with like a 6-pack of Coors Light and a ladder so I can like watch the rodeo this year from the outside because I wouldn't be let in, and House of Beef tri-tip sandwich and stuff. So that was my excuse. They bribed me so I couldn't run for mayor so I could run for governor. And so that's when I evoked the storyline of good and evil. And that's when I kind of went in, man. Remember when we did that? I think, were you down? Yeah.
That one was next level.
Yeah, dude. I went in on Oakdale Bud runs for governor.
Oh, I'm going to pull it up real quick and just watch a little bit of it because it was at a time where there was a lot of like political conversations going on. It was kind of like
Hot topics.
the us versus them mentality that a lot of us really, I feel like, are starting to adopt, especially with like the political climate and everything like that. I'm gonna watch this real quick and take a little inspo for the further conversation because I think this is like at the core a lot of Bud's beliefs and Bud's character was shown through this video. Looking back on it, it makes me realize that like, especially with today's political climate, and you can just keep rolling this, I really do think that Oakdale Bud has a voice in terms of what the going on here in the world right now, because it is starting to become like small town America is going to survive. It's going to be small town America versus the cities.
There's some truth in what I said in that one episode where it's like Oakdale's gonna be the last town standing.
Pretty much all
It is.
truth.
Not
what you
necessarily
said.
Oakdale, but the small towns, right? The more towns with a more tribal togetherness mentality. All I need is my bud juice, my shotgun, a couple good buddies, and we're gonna hold the town down.
And a city tank.
And a city tank,
And a city
maybe
tank.
some RPGs.
Aaron, you and I have had a lot of conversations about this too. We've had conversations, and I know a lot of guys like ourselves are having conversations about, like, we're gonna get a ranch compound. Your family's gonna be here. Our family's gonna be there. We're gonna do all this stuff. That's something that people talk about in the small town America. That's something that people take action towards doing.
Not only talk about it, they live it.
They do.
That's nature for them, and a lot of people are gravitating back towards that sort of lifestyle.
I think one of the things that Oakdale started doing was the local farmers market, bringing together all these local vendors on Saturdays. Shout out Lisa Kilgard for doing that. But it's just one of those things that you see it happening in big cities. You see it happening in other places as well. But when your city starts to do that, all these local vendors are coming together. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, you get that sense of togetherness in smaller towns a lot more for a lot of different reasons. Obviously, there's less people, so you know people easier. You get to know their families on a generational level. And that's why, even though when I said that one line in Oakdale Bud Part 2 about, Oakdale would be the last town standing if there was ever like an invasion or whatever, part of that, I think, transcends Oakdale and goes into the smaller town communities, because let's face it, if there ever is some stuff that goes down in America, God forbid, I doubt it will ever happen, but if it does, and the way things are kind of leading, you never know. But I think that bigger cities will eat themselves alive. And you saw that back in 2020 when literally, just for example, Washington, Seattle, they literally took over a part of the city, CHOP or whatever it was, and established their own.
I got to witness that.
Yeah, you saw
firsthand.
that. Yeah,
I was there for that.
They ate themselves from the inside. There was nonstop looting. There was also protesting on a peaceful level as well. I'm not going to say that it was all, I'm not going to play into that, right-wing talking point that it was all looting and rioting, because it wasn't. But you know what? There was a lot of that, and there's a lot of video evidence to prove it. And if that stuff ever did happen in a small town, which it wouldn't, because the majority of people in a small town care about their community, and they care about the businesses there, and they care about the people there. And that's what makes smaller communities strong. Because they care for each other.
Okay, so you have a background. You're educated in philosophy, and you have your master's in psychology. You have a lot of experience looking at different case studies when it comes to the evolution of people and communities that they're involved with. So what's your perspective on the value in being in a small town, in a community where you see yourself in other people? How important is that to be able to see yourself in other people? Whereas oftentimes you might come across someone where you don't relate to them and you don't trust them.
Right.
You don't feel that sense of comfort.
Relatability builds trust, right? And if you're in a smaller town, in a town that's a little bit more off the beaten path, there are smaller concepts to share. So for example, when you say the word tree, I automatically think of an almond tree, right? Because that's where we grew up. If you're in a different city, somewhere on the coast, if someone says tree, they might think of a palm tree. So that's just one example of sharing similar concepts of things. And because in smaller towns, there's, I guess, less stimuli, there's more shared concepts. There's less stuff, right? There's less going on. And so therefore, on a more base level, you share things with people easier. And for me personally, and I think a lot of people in a smaller town, they're automatically going to stand shoulder to shoulder with someone who kind of experiences what they have gone through. They share similar concepts and experiences, and especially if you're in the minority in terms of, where you grow up, right? So I think that's super important to cultivate, right? The sense of togetherness. I once heard from a wise coach that I know, Coach Trent Merzon, shout out. He was like, in Oakdale, and I think this transcends into smaller towns in general, it's like people will defend people in this town even if they don't like them. And I think that's that's Oakdale Bud, baby.
Yeah, it's community.
It's community, man. And you see that here in towns, and people, they might talk shit on people, and there's a small town gossip and the drama, but at the end of the day, you know what, like, those people are going to have your back, and that's just kind of how it works, at least from my personal experience. That's not the case in all situations, but yeah, I think it's that's more of a fact than it's a falsehood in general. But yeah, how do we get? We got off on the tangent there, boys.
But I think it comes back to what we're talking about with Oakdale Bud and his relatability and the character that you've built with Oakdale Bud. It's important to reflect on
Why it resonates with people.
Yeah, it's why
Yeah.
it's because it's part of our persona, right? It's part of who we are and how we connect with people. So all seriousness aside, Oakdale Bud uses comedy to develop his character.
Yeah.
He'll have his deep moments, but you've been able to utilize comedy as a way to connect with your target audience. So tell us a little bit about why you chose that and where you've decided to go with that Oakdale Bud.
Yeah, so I don't know. Comedy is a great tool to reach an audience. I've always felt like people are going to pay attention to your stuff if you can make them laugh or cry. And I've made a few people cry through my videos before, but I don't know. Comedy is more nuanced and it's more subtle. You can relay a message in a more indirect way, and people in general, they don't want to be hit over the head with things. It's too boring, right? So comedy allows you to convey a message, convey feelings, whatever it is. You evoke thoughts in a more disguised way, and it makes people think a little bit more. Like I said, it's more nuanced. So that's why I decided to go down the route of comedy. And also, I was just like an actor, it's good to cultivate your comedic skills and comedic timing and developing jokes and whatnot, and that's been fun for me personally. Comedy can be a very powerful thing, and it helps people. I mean, it's good for the soul. People like to laugh, right? It's a good medicine.
I would say comedy can resonate with everyone as opposed to emotion necessarily can't.
I agree, dude. Everyone likes to laugh. I don't care who you are. I don't care how serious or stoic you are. Nothing feels better than a good laugh. And so that gives me fulfillment, making people laugh and making people feel good. I ran into someone at the rodeo this last year, a buddy of mine, and he said to me, he's like, dude, whenever I see your content come up, I love the fact that it makes me laugh. And there's so much sad stuff on social media these days, and whenever I see your stuff, it's like it puts a smile on my face, and that was nice to hear. That was reassuring, and that makes me feel good as a entertainer, as a creator. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and I'll just say firsthand, Eriksen, you've done content with the business I work for.
Yeah.
And I would say it's been very well received beyond the local community here to people that you and I would never necessarily meet in person.
Yeah.
But they all get the same reaction. It's hilarious and they love it.
That's good to hear, man. Yeah. No, when you first asked me to help you out there with the shout outs and the giveaways for your company, I was honored. I mean, it was cool. It's like Oakdale Bud's an influencer now, right?
He is an influencer.
Yeah. So no, that was super cool to be a part of, and I definitely hope that we get to do more stuff with Tara West. Shout out Tara West, baby.
Those have been great times.
Yeah.
Being a part of the production. I know, Aaron, you've been there for all of it too. We've been able to create a lot of different opportunities where we got to sharpen our production skills, whether we were doing something with a bunch of green screen, doing things with these different sets, or even being running and gunning among different community events. Aside from being able to sharpen our skills, we've kind of seen Oakdale Bud become somewhat of a figure in Oakdale, right?
He's created a monster.
He's created this character that you can't really get away from. And I've been there plenty of times. I know you have as well, Aaron, where we'll go somewhere and people come up to Eriksen and want pictures. They're talking to him.
He's a celebrity.
He's a celebrity. They want to talk to him like he's Oakdale Bud, where there has to be, in real life, there's a separation between this character and this real human. And I think the real human has similar experiences to Oakdale Bud, different perspective on life. But when you're out and about, what is it like when people come up to you and they talk to you because they know you have this Oakdale Bud character, but you have this other life that you could connect with them on as well?
Right.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah, so Oakdale Bud really is more myth than man, right? Like Soren, like you just said, it's like there are a lot of similarities, but there's also a lot of differences, right? Like I'm an actor, I'm a performer. So this is a character first and foremost. And I think a lot of people, when they meet me in person, the ones that don't know me really as Eriksen, they know me as Bud, they're a little bit surprised because I'm more reserved in person, more thoughtful. Like Soren mentioned earlier, I have a bachelor's in philosophy, right? And I have a master's in clinical psychology. People who watch me as Oakdale Bud, they like the content, they probably would never guess that, okay, well, I'm more of a thinker. right?
Yeah, I would say as a testament to your acting, I get people who ask me on multiple occasions, is he really like that?
I love that. That
I'm
makes
just
me feel good. I love that,
And I'm
actually.
just like, no. He has a master's in psychology.
But no, honestly, psychology helped me with the character.
Exactly.
Yeah, human
exactly.
behavior and understanding people. And that's actually so funny to hear, man. I love
No, I've been asked that on multiple occasions.
That's good. That's
Yes.
good. That means I'm doing something right.
Absolutely.
Oh, but yeah, man. No, I'm more introverted by nature, and you put a camera on me, and I can act my heart out. But in a social crowd or whatever, I'm really not the most outgoing guy, right? I don't really like putting myself out there, and a lot of it's just being a character like Oakdale Bud is easier for me in a crowd. So I really didn't expect these videos to take off like they did. And like you were saying, it's like I go out in public now, and it's I go to the store, people, are you Oakdale Bud? Are you him? And can I take a picture with you? Or can you sign this paper? I want your autograph. And just the other day I went into the barber shop, and the guys recognized me in there, and they were we're gonna put your painting, and we're gonna put a picture of you on the wall, and collect your hair and stuff. And it's
We just went back there today, and they're telling the other barber, hey, you got to get this guy's autograph.
Yeah. One thing that really got me was I ordered Round Table Pizza here in Oakdale not maybe 6 months ago. I went in there, I got the pizza I was gonna pay, I got the receipt, and I noticed that the bill was like literally 70% off, and I thought there was a mistake, and I said, over the phone you told me the price was going to be this, it's way cheaper, did you make a mistake? And she was like, well, you're Oakdale Bud. And I was like, yeah, I am, but it does not warrant a 70% discount. And the gal,
Or does it?
I don't know. The gal was was very sweet, and I'm very honored by that. But there's just a lot of things that, being a more introverted guy, like, I got a message from somebody during the political season a year or two ago in Oakdale asking for a political endorsement. The Oakdale High, like the kids there, the senior, this is like a year ago, they reached out to me, and they wanted me to go and help them when they were doing the what's that rally that they were doing?
Where they were protesting the
masks.
mandates.
They're doing like a walkout rally, and they wanted me to go. And we were like, this could be some great content, and we respect the cause.
We were there at the high school.
We showed up the next morning, and we were going to help them. And then there was parents there that were like, came and talked to us, and they were like, we trying to diffuse the situation. The last thing we need is somebody like yourself. They're very nice, very respectful, but nicely told me that probably don't instigate anything further. But it got to a point like, we're kids starting to get involved, right? I get DMs from high schoolers like asking me for advice and stuff, and I started to really see that I was kind of morphing into a role model for kids. Like, Aaron, you were with us, Soren, when we went out with the Oakdale Renegades, the youth soccer team. And, they really looked up to me, so I went out there and we shot some content with them, made a video, but I started to see more so that I kind of wielded a lot of power with this character, and I needed to be careful with it. And that was one thing that kind of scared me a little bit, is people recognize me a lot when I go out in public. Oh, that's Oakdale Bud, Oakdale Bud, Oakdale Bud, oh yeah. And it's starting to make me feel like I was under a microscope. And
with power comes responsibility.
With power comes responsibility, man. And even though my content can be a little bit outlandish, it's like I always try to like not go too over the top, and because people are watching me, and kids are watching me. Yeah.
You get the spotlight, and we were at the Oakdale Chamber event.
Yeah.
And you ended up getting pulled up to the front, I think multiple times, and you made in the local newspaper, you were the picture that was representing the event.
Oakdale Bud is the literal theme this year for Oakdale High's homecoming.
Huh.
Yes. So there's that as well, which is a huge honor.
And they're dancing to your hit single.
They are, Buds with Mac Jonesy. Oh yeah. It's gonna be sick. Definitely should try to go to that. But yeah, I don't know, man. There's definitely times where it makes me feel uncomfortable. Like, you guys remember that one time where we were in Lodi shooting for that company? Someone came up to me, and they recognized me in Lodi. Yeah. So it did get to a point where it just started to freak me out a little bit. Like, I experienced what it's like to be famous on a very micro level, right? I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form I'm famous, because I'm not. My ego is not that big, right? But you kind of you understand to an extent, like what it's like to be a small town celebrity, and even that can make you feel uncomfortable. It can make you be more self-conscious when you're going out in public. You know, I'm gonna wear my hat a little bit low just because I am introverted and I just don't want to talk to anybody right now.
Sure.
Like if someone comes up to me.
Yeah, I've lived with you through this whole experience, and I've noticed when we come home, oftentimes we will sometimes avoid going out to places because
I understand.
Yeah, I mean, you've been there with us.
It can be overwhelming.
We go places,
and it's not even me that has to deal with it.
Sure,
it's everywhere we go.
Yeah, totally. And it's an honor. It's a huge honor. And I'm very proud of the character that I've created, that we've created together. But at the same time, just being a human and being more on the reserve side, it can just, you know, make me feel uncomfortable a little bit. But
what kind of responsibilities do you feel like you need to live up to as you've developed this character, especially amongst a young community? Well, we have a lot of like older people here in the Oakdale area, but there are a lot of young people. I think the young audience gets drawn into a lot of the local content, a lot of the local narratives. So as Oakdale Bud, talk about, you know, the character, some of the trials he's gone through, and how you can relate those to the responsibilities that you have as a character.
Yeah, that's a great question. And you know, a lot of people might be confused by that because a lot of the content I make is comedic. But if you kind of read through the lines, I am saying a lot of stuff through it. I would say, first and foremost, taking pride in your hometown. It's kind of one of those things where, I'm making a lot of parody stuff about my hometown. But at the same time, it's one of those things where it falls under the concept of, I can pick on my brother. I can make fun of my brother because I love my brother, but you can't. And if you do, then there's going to be a problem. It's kind of one of those things. It's that old saying where it's like, I'm from here. I love this town. 4th generation. So it's like, you know, I'm not doing this out of spite. And I think it's important for young kids to take pride in where they're from. It's their home, to form that togetherness with their friends, their families, and putting their all into what they do. No one can say that Oakdale Bud, the character, you know, doesn't give it his all in whatever he's doing, all the shenanigans that he's getting into. Grit and integrity, I throw that around a lot, but I think that's actually two things that's very important to live by, right? Grit will get you through a lot of hard times. Integrity, looking someone in the eye, shaking their hands, that can take you a long way in life as well. Just being responsible. Like there was one video I did, I think we mentioned it, where I went to rehab, and we kind of went a little deeper in that video where Oakdale Bud really went down a dark alcohol bender, and he ended up in rehab. You know, I think anybody who watches my videos will know that Oakdale Bud, he drinks a decent amount, Coors Lights, but then there's always this kind of back-ended joke about it that it's affecting him in negative ways, right? Like he's bud brain, he's not thinking clearly, he's drunk, he's too hungover, he's falling asleep in a dumpster behind H-Bar. And if you just look at that, it's like, that's not exactly the best way to live, right? So it's like being
still living on mom's ranch.
Shoveling
shit.
Yeah, shoveling shit. And, you know, that's just a stereotype of the small town stuff. Definitely not everybody from Oakdale is like that by any means. But just seeing that and laughing at it, but also knowing that, okay, let's make something of my life that's probably not the best route to go down, you know?
Yeah, and I would say you set a good example of the consequences, I guess you could say, of living that sort of lifestyle.
Right.
And you paint a good picture of what it's like to embody that sort of persona and not grow up.
That's one thing. It's like, as the character of Oakdale Bud, I think a lot of it, you know, he wears a Letterman jacket still. He wears the rings all the time. And I think that is a little bit of his way of coping with a certain level of pain, right? Like his glory days were in his past. That's when he really shined. And this guy now, 10 years later, he never really quite got to a point where his current life gave him any fulfillment. It's all in the past. And I think people pick up on that, and they know that deep down Oakdale Bud really wishes he was in a different place, right? His past. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. They know that guy, right? They know that certain person. And it's obviously more exaggerated in these videos, but I think that people catch on that and, you know, think about the future, right? Because you should always look to the future more as opposed to dwelling on the past and getting stuck there. It's been a journey, boys. Yeah, it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun, and we have a lot of good ideas that we're definitely going to put to the stage.
Bud's not done.
Bud's not going anywhere. He'll never go anywhere. Bud can't die.
No.
He's immortal.
He'll never grow up either.
He won't grow up. He's going to keep coming back with deeper and deeper narratives.
Yeah.
I think the Oakdale Bud took a level of consciousness you really have to work on to see what these different nuances of a character might embody, right? We've had a lot of conversations around the character, how he's evolved what we're trying to do with his character in the future and how it follows somewhat of the linear path of the development of characters who grew up in a small town. I think that that's really important. Tell us a little bit about your approach to remaining conscious and looking into the future and even the present development of the character.
Yeah, I mean, literally, it could be as simple as looking at yourself in the mirror. If you don't look at yourself, then you don't really have a base to like move forward, right? Or even looking at people that are like you and that you see similar traits with. Reading a lot or whatever it might be. It doesn't just have to be a book. It can be studying things online, on social media, challenging your opinions, challenging your beliefs, acquiring new knowledge, exposing yourself to new experiences. That's how you become more conscious, right? That's how you become more aware of yourself, because you can look at those things that you experience and you can say, how do I compare to this? Or, how do my beliefs stack up against this? But yeah, everybody's process is different, right?
I think that a lot of that self-reflection and deep dive that you do into the development of the character is something that we see doing a lot of commercial corporate work, where you're having to really tap into an audience and try and understand who you're talking to, or understand what the business's value proposition might be, and how you take that value proposition and connect it with a specific audience. And oftentimes these businesses don't really know who they're talking to that well. So you have to spend time with them, understand who they are, what their story is, how they actually understand their audience, and then work together to create this strategy to connect with who you're talking to.
It's between the character and the audience. If you as the character don't understand yourself, then us as the producers aren't going to be able to tell your story that's going to be able to relate with the audience that you're trying to sell or market your product to.
Sure.
So they're very correlated.
Right. You want to be able to build a relationship through a feeling, through whichever medium of content you're putting out, rather than having to meet someone and have this robust relationship built and have that feeling made. You can do that through the power of visual content, podcasts, books.
Storytelling in general, baby.
Yeah.
It's the most powerful weapon in the world, storytelling.
It really is.
It really is.
It's all one big story.
It is.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's the end of today's episode. Check us out at scalingcreator.com, and we look forward to the next episode.
Oakdale Bud.
Oakdale Bud.